Good morning. I am Siddhappa Assistant Professor of English, Government First Grade College, Nyamati, Davanagere. The title of the paper is 20th Century Literatures, paper number 9. It is an elective paper. This paper is prescribed for BA degree program, optional English, 6th semester of Davanagere University, Davanagere. And this is the 14th session, and the topic is W.H. Auden's poem The Shield of Achilles and its discussion from 3rd stanza till 6th stanza. Learning objectives and session outcomes of this session are: the students are enabled to understand the shield and their difference in the poem, and the session outcomes are students will be able to understand the impact of war, and the another session outcome is students will understand the allusion to crucifixion. Coming to recapitulation, the poet W.H. Auden and his brief biography, and the shield of Achilles background. See, I already told you that W.H. stand for Winston Hugh Auden, who was born in York of England in 1907. He was the poet, dramatist, and also a writer and a political thinker. Fine. And he was born in England but migrated to United States of America, and where he had settled later by getting the citizenship of the USA. And he was influenced by Sigmund Freud and also Karl Marx. Okay, so he had made a tour to Spain, China, etc., and he had seen both the world wars, First World War and the Second World War, and its impact on the common people. Okay, see, based on all these things, he had written the poems. And here, in this poem, The Shield of Achilles, which is actually meant for the Greek hero, that is Achilles, and his mother Thetis, who went to the blacksmith named Hephaestus to forge a shield for her son to guard, and who is going to take part in the Trojan War. And she had ordered to portray or to make the shield according to her wishes. Okay, see, Hephaestus was the blacksmith of the gods and who stayed on the Mount Olympus, accepted, and he had engraved the different pictures. And here the pictures requested by Thetis and the images portrayed by Hephaestus are quite different. The images expected by Thetis are said to be the images in the original shield, and the images engraved by Hephaestus are said to be the modern shield. So please keep these 2 points in your mind. Okay, see, W.H. Auden was actually disgusted and disappointed by looking at the havocs and the Holocaust of the Second World War, first standard. And hence, war cannot be glorified so far, and war is not a good thing for human civilization. And hence, he bitterly and ironically criticizes the effects of war in this poem. Okay, see, the images engraved by Hephaestus and the images expected by Thetis on the shield for her son Achilles is the major theme of this poem. So this is the brief background you need to know. Yes, coming to this, that I already told you one thing, that Um, Actually, Thetis had expected uh, on the shield for her son by Hephaestus is that it must be full of life, beauty of the trees, and such things. Okay, so there should be some olive trees like that. But he has engraved on that shield was quite different. It was totally a barren land or the modern wasteland he had carved on it. Now let me go for the third stanza of this poem. See, Auden, as I already told you, was disillusioned by the totalitarian state of the modern world, which completely buried the growth of the individual, and he felt that people existed as state, not as the individual. Okay, so he contrasted Achillean world with that of the modern world. Achillean world is quite different and it was peaceful, whereas the modern world is not at such a peaceful and which is having some beauty. That is the point. See here the voice of some unknown figures, maybe the government voice or the ruler's voice or the dictator's voice or the totalitarian's voice announces in the radio and listed data points as justification for the soldiers going off to battle. They do not say what is the reason why they see, simply they gave orders through the radio and the soldiers must be ready with numbers and they should fight whatever the order that is being passed by the dictators or the governments, and there is no one-to-one correspondence between the rulers and the root. Okay, so they are not personal but they are impersonal. That is what is being said here. The voice was dry. The ruler's voice was dry and flat, and at the same time it was emotionless as the landscape itself. Earlier I had explained that the modern world is totally a wasteland or the barren land which is not full of the sceneries which are being expected by Thetis. Okay, so it was an emotionless as the landscape itself. There is a dry voice, flat, and it was emotionless. That is what is being explained here. The voice did not make anyone more excited or eager for battle. See, when the order is passed by the dictators, the soldiers must be ready and they are ready to fight or ready to execute the orders. But the thing is that they did not make any more excited or eager for battle. That is to say, the soldiers are not willing to partake participation in the war, but it was their duty and hence they simply follow without any expressions. But there was no further discussion. See, I already told you that the dictators are almost impersonal and there is no personal communication with the soldiers or the public or the individual, whatever it is, and hence there is no communication and it is impersonal and there is no scope for any discussion. Okay, so they must simply to execute the orders passed by the dictators. This is what is being said here. Fine. One after the other, the soldiers filled out, kicking up dust in their wake. Look at this thing. Once when the order is passed, the soldiers must be ready for the battlefield and they must execute without questioning, and there is no scope for any discussion. So this is the modern world. This is being described here, and such image are being engraved on the shield. That is the modern shield, and it is quite opposite of what Thetis expects the images. Fine. Without discussion or reflection, the people march away in lines to serve that cause which eventually brings them to grief. Look at this thing. without any discussion. These soldiers march up the lines to execute the orders passed by the dictators, and hence they eventually bring some grief to them. So this seems to be the war and its ill effects on the soldiers and the families and the society as a whole. So this is the thing that we need to understand. See, no one was cheered and nothing was discussed. Column by column, in a cloud of dust, they marched away, enduring a belief whose logic brought them somewhere else to grief. Look at the lines that are being said in this poem. Okay, so this is the thing here. So coming to the next stanza, the poem returns to Thetis, who is the mother of Achilles, and who has given an order to Hephaestus to forge a shield for her son, who is going to take part in the Trojan War. And again she expects the images. Let me read out the original lines of this stanza. She looked over his shoulder for ritual pieties, white flower garlanded heifers, libation and sacrifice. So this is the expectation of Thetis on the what we call the shield. Okay, see where she expects to see ritual pieties in the forms of sacrificial cows decorated with white flowers, white flowers and garlands, and ceremonial offerings on the shield. So this is the expectation of Thetis and the image, but she sees quite another scene in a flickering forge light. So this is the expectation of Thetis, but however the scene that is being engraved on the shield is quite different. So Hephaestus, by being a blacksmith for the gods, who is there on the Mount Olympus, has engraved the different image. So that is what we have seen in this stanza. Let me explain this. She sees the field enclosed by barbed wire, where bored officers are resting about. Some even cracked jokes while the guards or soldiers were sweating in the heat. Meanwhile, a group of average, reasonable townsfolk looked on silently while three figures are shackled and crucified. It is the mockery of Jesus Christ's crucifixion. See, the second time, the images on the shield expected by Thetis are actually related to religious pieties. And in the modern world, there is no space for any spirituality and religion and the beliefs like that. They are totally careless, and hence, in the first stanza itself, I explained that the modern world is the divide of any spirituality, and the pictures he engraved on the shield are totally related to the wasteland. Related to this, the second time she expects some religious pieties and related images with a cow decorated with white flower garlands and libation, okay, and all those things. But in the dim light, she had seen another scene, not her own scene of expectation, and that scene is related to the barbed wire scene. See, barbed wire, in place of altar, there is the scenery related to barbed wires. Barbed wire related to the war technique. Okay, it may be the border between two countries. Barbed wire, where board officers, the military officers are almost unhappy, but they are resting about, they are carelessly sitting, and some of the officers are cracking the jokes, while the guards or the other soldiers were sweating in the heat. They were struggling very hard, and the group of average people, the ordinary men and women who are walking past these people, actually are dumbfounded. See, in the modern world, in the dictatorial world, The people are not supposed to express themselves. The very right of expression is almost curbed by the totalitarian governments, and that is what is being seen here. And the theater's expectation to see the scenes of happiness and peace, like those described by Homer, are absent here. This is very clear. Fine. So this is what we have seen, and something not matching our expectations, and this point is very clear soon after knowing these things. Look at the original lines of this poem. A crowd of ordinary decent folk watched from without and neither moved nor spoke. To three pale figures were led forth and bound to the three posts driven upright in the ground. See, look at the tragedy of these people. This is what is being said in this stanza. And coming to the next stanza of this poem, we are going to see these three posts lived with all their beauty and significance. Three posts mean three soldiers of another country, maybe. Okay, see, these three persons lived with all their beauty and significance. They have their own beauty of life, but all that they held dear were equal to the lives of everyone else. After all, they are all human beings, but they are being caught by the opponents, okay, so enemy camps, and however their fate was now out of their control. See, their fate is out of their control. They are helpless, okay, they are helpless in the situation, and they were being caught by the enemies, and they have to meet their fate as early as possible. Fine. And the beauty of their life is curbed by the war. So this is the intention of W.H. Auden here in this stanza. However, their fate was now out of their control. They were powerless because they are only three in number. Okay? And had no hope that anyone would help them. Nobody will come to their help because they are being shackled, and of course there are some people who are passing in front of them, but nobody came and questioned, and nobody helped them to be released. This is the point here. And indeed no one came to their help, and that is their fate. Okay, their captors simply did what captors do. That is to say, the people or the persons or the soldiers who have caught them have done what to do. That's all. That is to say, they will be given what we call a heavy torture for them to say some secrets of their country, and ultimately they were shot to death. So this is the fate of those being captivated. And that the worst among the crowd could hope for was that the victims would feel shame. The victims would feel shame. So the people who are being captivated are actually facing the feeling of shame and contempt about themselves because they have died before they actually died. So that is the condition of those people who are being captivated. The three figures, that is to say the three people, okay, see, were stripped of their dignity. They have not given any respect as the individuals, okay, and the humanity before they physically died. So they were not given any respect as the human beings, and it is the tendency of the dehumanized mindset of the modern warfare, okay. So they have almost died before they physically die because they have lost their dignity of life, lost their beauty of life, and they have lost the human tendency and tender nature and all those things. This is what is being said here, and at the end they were shot to death. So the three posts refers to the Jesus Christ's crucifixion here, okay. So here the people are under the control of the despotic rulers. They had lost their self-respect as citizens. They are timid, so they could not hope for any help. That is the thing here. And modern warfare and ordinary life cannot exist side by side as in olden days. Modern warfare is different from ancient warfare and it is too brutal. So, this can be said about this particular stanza of the poem. So, this I have already explained. Covers, and the last line describes and died as men before their bodies died. Coming to this point, I would like to tell you one thing. In one of the Shakespeare's plays, there is the line, cowards die many times before they die. And this is the fate of the three people who are being caught by their enemies. This can be said directly related to this point. Thank you.